East 830. The Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee will now come to order.
Just bring them up here.
We'll begin by announcing that item number 5 will be continued. Item number 5 on today's agenda will be continued to the next meeting, scheduled meeting of this committee. At this time, we anticipate that would be November 14th is the next anticipated meeting of this committee. And I say anticipated because that could change. Okay? Next, we'll go to item number 1. Please read into the record.
Item number 1, motion Cardenas-Reyes relative to actions to be taken pursuant to the Los Angeles Municipal Code Section 12.81 for the operation of the winter shelter program from December 2012 to March 2013 by the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, and this item is scheduled for council today.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Pardon me, Mr. Chair, there's a technical correction. The motion mentions that there are 9 locations. I understand from LASA that there should be 7 locations.
Okay, so the technical correction will be added from 9 locations to 7, so it is accurate and true. And so with that, is there anybody here for public comment on item number 1? Public comment on item number 1. Seeing and hearing nobody here, no cards before me on item number 1 for public comment. Public comment has now been opened. Public comment is now closed. Public comment has now been satisfied for this item. With that, I will go ahead and recommend approval as a chair of the committee as we move the item forward. Okay. Next, we go to item number 2.
Item number 2, motion Corretz for Cardenas relative to the CDD to reprogram unallocated funds to the community-based organizations and to amend necessary consolidated plans necessary to effectuate the intent of the motion.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is there anybody here for public comment on item number 2? Item number 2 is now before us. It is now time for public comment on item number 2 as public comment has been opened. Is there anybody here for public comment on item number 2? Seeing and hearing none. I don't have any public cards before me on item number 2. Public comment on item number 2 is now closed. What I would like to do is amend the item before us, changing the amount for Homeboy Industries to $550,000, and also add the Center for Adult Treatment Services for $150,000 for building construction and amenities. Building construction and amenities. Okay. So that would be $150,000 for building construction and amenities. Okay. Also, I'd like to ask that part of the direction of this motion to CDD, for CDD provide the controller instructions to meet up with this motion in council. Okay, public comment has been satisfied on this item number 2, and it'll be a recommendation of the chair we move this item forward as amended. Okay. Next, we go to item number 3.
Item number 3, CDD report relative to program year 2011-2012, Family Source Center annual performance evaluation results.
Okay. Is there anybody here to make public comment on item number 3? Public comment on item number 3 is open. I don't see any public comment cards on item number 3, although I do see some on item number 6, and we'll go to those when the item is up. Okay, seeing no one come forward on item number 3 for public comment. Public comment on item number 3 is now closed. Also, we'll instruct the clerk that we'd like to see this item in council on November 6th. And at that time, we will be doing presentations to those groups that were top performers and are making major difference in our young people's lives. With that, we'll go ahead and be the recommendation of the chair to note and file the CDD report as it is informational. Okay. Thank you. We'll go now to item number 4.
Item number 4, communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Dr. Clyde Oden to the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority Commission for the term ending June 30, 2017.
Okay. Okay. It appears that this clarification, Kirk?
Yes, for the record, Dr. Clyde Oden has withdrawn from further consideration. We are waiting on a report from the mayor's office regarding a new nominee for this appointment. At this time, we can either continue this item, or we can send it forward to council without recommendation, and the council can either receive and file it, or we can continue it and then wait for the report from the mayor's office and then receive and file it here in committee.
Okay. We'll continue the item. We'll continue, since the mayor's office is looking to find another name to move forward. So we'll continue the item. So that's the action on item number 4. We now move to item number 6, as item 5 has been continued.
Yes, Michael Keck, CLA's office. Item number 6, LHD report and CAO to report relative to approval of the 2012 Housing Studies and Services RFQ qualified list and authorization to execute 3 professional services contracts. And we have a CAO report on this item.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go to public comment first. We have a handful of public comment cards here. We'll go to 2 minutes per person. I'll read them as I pick them up. Can you come forward as I call your name? K. Butterfield. And if I butcher your name, I do apologize, and you'll have an opportunity to say it correctly. Joy Staves. B. Naritz. Please come forward as I call your name. Michael Millman. Hello. Start to my left. Go ahead and state your name for the record.
My name is Joyce Daves.
Okay, go ahead. You have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. We are opposed to this request for a study, I believe, is what it is, to see if we need 3 additional, I'm looking here, that's going to allow the city to bring 3 more contracts into the city for tenant advocacy groups. We represent a small apartment complex. My husband and I personally own multifamily, just 4 houses on 1 lot, that we are, in today's community economic situation, we are constantly being barraged by frivolous tenant complaints, and I only think adding more advocacy groups to this city's thing only gives people more ammunition, more tenants ammunition. We provide clean, safe environments for people, and we get cited by the LA public just because by the LA Housing Authority just because frivolous complaints are made. And I have to pay money for an inspector to go out and look at something that was frivolous and did not occur. And then when you go and fight it, you have to pay $168 to fight it that you're never going to get back. And these are because the tenants, and you might not win because they might agree with the tenant on whatever the frivolous things are, such as they didn't know how to turn on a switch. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
And ma'am, sorry.
Go ahead. Your name again?
My name is Kay Butterfield, and I agree with Joy in regards to that we really don't need more tenant advocacy groups to, it just adds so much more bureaucracy into the mix of trying to maintain the property for the benefit of everyone. And we call out Mercedes Marquez by name and have the Housing Committee know we don't trust her at all. We also call out Christine Minelhan by name. She is trying to obtain one of these contracts. She is known as one of the most powerful tenant advocates in California. She has pushed for more of the anti-landlord legislation in Sacramento the past 30 years. If she gets this contract, who knows what it means for property owners and landlords.
You may continue.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Next.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief and to the point.
Your name again for the record?
Michael Millman, M-I-L-L-M-A-M. I'm a housing provider, and of course we stand in violent or aggressive opposition to Christina Minahan getting any type of contract. Sir, she does not share our values, okay? This is lost, I'm sorry, can't get this.
Why don't you put it on vibrate once and for all?
Fine, I don't understand how this works. I'm
Turn it
trying to
off.
apologize.
Do you know how to turn it off?
Yeah, I'm attempting to.
Keep going, Doug.
You don't want me to get
Take
violent.
care of it.
That's one thing that pisses me off when people don't follow the rules. Go ahead.
Okay. Let's be clear here. This isn't Berkeley, this isn't Santa Monica, and this isn't West Hollywood. When someone moves out of their unit, you can bring it to market. Christine Minahan has fought in the trenches in Sacramento to have one concept. She wants the cities, West Hollywood, Santa Monica, LA, Berkeley, to control the rents. She's an ideologue, she's not qualified, she's divisive, she's belligerent and antagonistic. If you read her piece in section 6, it says you need an expert highly qualified in the field to provide guidance and information. She doesn't meet that standard. The organized owners feel very, very strongly why, after we had a riot on May 21st, 2010, would we put somebody so divisive? We spent $1 million on a report on housing. It's been ignored. This group behind me published a 18-page document on the 17th day of September 2010 dealing with the same subject that she's going to be employed to do. She's not good for the landscape of cooperation between owners, tenants, and LAHD. She is poison. She is not appropriate if you want to have reconciliation. Thank you, and I apologize for my cell phone. We're opposed to giving her the contract for those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The next folks, thank you all very much. Next folks will bring up, am I saying the name right? B. Benjamin Wright, Benjamin, Bill Huey, George Banzagian. I apologized already for butchering people's names. You'll have an opportunity to say your name correctly when you come up. Ronald Ellie. Okay, we'll start to my left. State your name, please.
Yeah, I'm Bun Sieng Benjatrit, one of the owners.
What's your name again?
Bun Sieng Benjatrit.
Okay.
Yeah, just to say that I'm opposed to the proposal. Okay? That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bill.
Good morning, Councilman. My name is Bill Huey. I'm the president of Fair Housing Coalition. We're an organization of landlords that believe in equality and fairness under the law for both landlords and renters. We are opposed to all outside contractors, and our belief is this simple. If a LA housing inspector is qualified, he can look at a building that had a code violation, he can sign off, and that should be the end of it. We don't need a bunch of activists coming out to stir things up. If the inspectors do not have enough training or knowledge, and we need an outside source to double-check their work, let's get rid of these inspectors and hire qualified people. We don't need two people doing the same job. This is an insult to the taxpayer. We're wasting money for outside help when we should have our own people who should be qualified to do the job. Secondly, a lot of these outside activists have ties to lawyers who sue landlords. You can cross-check them on Google. That's a big conflict of interest. And thirdly, you know, at the LA Housing Department, you have that rent stabilization board, which is a waste because they can't change the law. Why not create an oversight committee? If you want fairness for the landlords and the renters, create an oversight committee of 3 renters and 3 landlords. And anybody who wants to be on that committee in LA can put their name into a fishbowl. It's a raffle once a year. And any landlord or any tenant in LA who has an issue with any policy of LHD can go before this board. Once a week they could meet, and a person could say this is wrong or that's wrong, and the board could vote on it. If they come to an impasse, have a retired judge on call who you change them every 6 months or every year, and he hears both sides of the argument, and he casts the final vote. We got to create fairness. You got these activists. I speak Spanish, and I hear what they tell tenants, and I go to a lot of inspections, and they use words like, let's screw over your landlord, let's keep them in REAP, make the smoke detectors appear. This is criminal activity. We don't need any outside contractors.
Thank you. George?
Yes, my name is George Barsegian. I'm a small...
How do you say your last name?
Barsegian.
Barsegian. Thank you. Go ahead.
You're welcome. I'm a real estate broker, and I'm also a small 4-unit apartment owner in Los Angeles. I'm already crushed by the inspectors of Los Angeles Housing Department. Every 3 years, I go through nightmares. When they inspect my property, they just come in and look for stuff that nobody is gonna see except themselves. I'm really having nightmares physically, mentally. I'm just sick of it. I cannot stand another group of people to come and over-inspect the other inspectors, which are bombers themselves. I'm almost retired, and this is the only way of income I have, and I'm just too scared that I'm losing my lifetime savings to these people, and I don't know what to say. And politicians like Mercedes Marquez should stop harassing landlords and stop being anti-ownership in this country, where we have come. This is enough. I cannot stand these politicians anymore, which are anti-ownership and capitalism in this country. I'm sick and tired of it. I didn't make any crime. I'm being treated as a criminal every time these inspectors stop by my place. That's all I have to say. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Good morning, Councilman. My name is Ronald Ely. I also own a rental property, and I want to echo everything that Bill said and this gentleman said. I think that probably everything else has been said as far as having additional layers of inspections. I once had a property that had Section 8 tenants, and there was a Section 8 inspection and then a LA inspection, and these things overlapped. And one thing that I did notice, which really needs to be taken a look at, the idea Bill had about having an oversight committee based with some members from our point of view. I don't think, if people don't have something that they're afraid of, why would they not do this? To have some representation, because otherwise it's, this guy's feeling it, I've been in the exact same place, lying awake at night, trying to make things work and make ends meet. If there was a perception that we're represented, I don't think that would happen. It would be more of a cooperation effort if the city and the landlords are working together to provide housing. That's what our purpose is. And if the city's purpose is to protect the well-being of tenants, then that should be a cooperation. Any landlord is in a business. You know, if you have a bakery and you make crappy baked goods, people don't come, you go out of business. And landlording should be the same way. But I believe that if there was a committee-based, where we have some representation, where somebody's in there saying, oh, wait a minute, no, these guys aren't like that, or that's not what really happens, or let's get their point of view, the input, I think things would work a lot better. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, thank you, gentlemen. Judah Romero.
Good morning. I'm Jutta Romero. I'm a landlord. And I have to tell you that housing is corrupt. Mercedes Marquez is corrupt. Everybody there, you want to call them, they always voicemail. Nobody gets back to you if you leave a message. And I don't even know why Mercedes Marquez was rehired. I mean, aren't there any other qualified people?
That was the mayor's idea. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. Well, he is corrupt as well. So anyway, why are there supposed to be more service, whatever they want, looking at landlords? The city officials are always screaming, we don't have money. So why are they want to spend money for that? They're screaming, we don't have enough housing. Why are they always after landlords? If you look at the website from the housing department, everything is for the tenants. They say, oh, tenant complaints. What about landlord complaints? You know, we have some tenants that are really, they should also be held responsible for how they keep their house. They don't, nothing is done against them from the housing department. And the code enforcement, that's plenty of what we have to go through, so why more? I don't understand it. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Shouldn't we have cooperation with the city officials and the departments that are responsible for housing? I don't think this is right. And I wish that you would not give your approval for more people coming and harassing us. Thanks.
Thank you, Judah. Next, William Morrison. No singing in this committee, by the way.
Thank you,
Go ahead.
Councilman Caress.
Your name for the record?
So I guess you heard of my karaoke singing.
No, just the name caught my attention.
Oh, okay. Actually, you know what? I'm really against this. I've been a landlord for 30 years, and you know, I have like a small, like 3 units, and basically, this doesn't really help anybody of you giving this money to these organizations, so I think I'm really much against this. You know, like smaller apartment buildings with the water increase rates and everything. It's very hard on a 3-unit building to keep up with the city of LA with DWP raising the rates and all these increased rates. So it's really destroying the smaller business of like people with properties with 3 units or less. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Those are the public comment cards that I have on item number 6. If somebody's here to make public comment on item number 6, you need to fill out a public comment card. So with that, public comment on item number 6 is now closed. If we could have the CEO come up and also the LA Housing Department come forward as well.
Sure. Good morning, council member. My name is Madeline Rackley. I'm here with the CAO. In April 2012, the Housing Department released a request for qualifications to establish an on-call list of contractors to provide various services such as studies and grant writing, analysis, policy development, marketing, and outreach. And I do want to note that as far as I understand it, this list of on-call contractors does not include inspections. It is for services such as policy development, marketing, outreach, etc. The department received 72 submissions, and after evaluating and scoring all the proposals, they've selected 55 contractors, and they've organized them into 14 categories. And again, I want to emphasize, this is an on-call list. It's not a list of contractors that are automatically going to get contracts. So,
I have a question for you.
yes,
If any of those 72 applicants have been involved have allowed themselves to be a plaintiff or what have you, or involved in some kind of lawsuit related to anything that has to do with either the housing department and/or tenants and/or landlords within the city, does that preclude them from being picked, or that's irrelevant?
I don't know, and maybe that's a city attorney question or a housing question. I don't know about the rules there. If a contractor hasn't been involved in a lawsuit.
Because from my vantage point as a policymaker, if somebody's going to give us some advice or what have you, I would rather have it from somebody who truly is third party to the city as far as its activity, as far as its opinions about what is or is not going on, et cetera, and them to just give a very stale opinion about what they recommend for the city. I wouldn't want somebody to have that bias already who, if they're going to be attaching themselves to things like lawsuits, et cetera, and then all of a sudden they're going to give the city advice when they've already intervened with their opinion about actual cases or actual activity going on in the city.
Sure. Certainly, we can report back on that if that is. We can answer two questions. We can find out what the rules are, and then we can find out if any of these contractors fit that category. We'd be happy to respond back to you on that.
Yeah, please. Were you
Okay.
going to add something?
Yes, I have a speech. Okay, so the Housing Department is requesting two things today. First, that the council adopt this list of on-call contractors, and because as far as the CAO understands the process, housing did follow the regular city process for RFQs, we would recommend adopting that. But based on what you've just requested, we'll see about that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that housing requests authority to negotiate and execute contracts with 3 of the vendors on the approved list. This is a little bit unusual. Normally, a city department would request approval of the list and then would come back later with recommendations about contracting. In this case, they feel as though they have some impending need to do some work. So they've requested to negotiate and execute 3 contracts. The CAO recommends approval of 2 of the contracts at this time. One is for Christine Minahan and Associates to provide legislative analysis, and this would be on an as-needed basis. So there would be a pot of money set aside, and as bills and legislation come forward, she would be directed to analyze that legislation.
We're talking about state legislation.
Correct. State
Yes.
legislation is a separate entity for federal legislation.
And the second contract would be with Shelter Partnership to provide HOPWA services also on an as-needed basis. And the Housing Department has worked with these 2 entities before. It's essentially a continuation of services that they have been providing. The third contract, however, is for PR and marketing services for tenants and owners. And due to the nature of this type of work, the CAO recommends that housing report back with information about a competitive process to select a contractor from the qualified list. And furthermore, we recommend that housing report to the council after consulting with the city attorney to determine whether or not their internal RFQ policy should be enhanced by implementing some sort of formal request for bids process so that qualified organizations on the list within each of the 14 categories may compete relative to a specific contract and its scope of work. We envision that such a process would potentially result in better services to the city's residents and also could lower costs to the city. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the process. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Councilman Rushmore Cervantes with the Housing Department. I'm joined by Claudia Monterosa from our Policy and Planning Unit. And let me just start by stating that what we have before you this morning is an effort for the Housing Department to enhance the services that are already provided by the staff. However, staff's expertise isn't good enough by itself. We look to outside expertise in the 14 areas that are called out for in this proposal before you. They are on an as-needed basis, but they help the department in many ways as far as looking at grants for future opportunities for funding. It looks at areas of outreach, both for landlords and tenants, not REAP, but just overall REAP, for rent stabilization ordinance, as well as the systematic code inspection program, to inform constituents, both landlords and tenants, of what their rights are. And this is a way to be able, or an effort to be able to curb issues that come up to elected offices on an as-needed basis or on an emergency basis. We need to be able to go out and inform the constituents, and the department doesn't feel there's anything wrong with educating our constituents, as both landlords and tenants, as to what their rights are. There's other areas of legislative, both state and federal assistance, that enables the department to look for resources for the department. As the resources diminish, both from the federal level as well as the elimination of redevelopment agencies around the state, the overall pool of monies to create affordable housing has diminished significantly. Looking at legislation both at the state and federal level is important for the department and the city to be able to advance the cause, to try to look for resources to follow bills and to support them, so that we can bring more resources to the city. So what you have before you are just merely technical contracts to assist the department to advance and further housing and provide affordable, safe living homes for our constituents.
Anything else?
No, unless you have particular questions, but on the legislative and regular regulations category, this contract really seeks to look at opportunities, possible funding opportunities, such as in the past Prop 1C or in the MHP program, in the future for seeking a permanent source of funding, those sorts of opportunities that are presented at the state level, so that the city of Los Angeles has a voice there.
Yeah, what little money is coming out of Sacramento, we need to take advantage of it.
Exactly.
Also, Rushmore, I'd like to meet with you next week if you could be ready to explain to me what the outreach is like, and also what the image is like from the department when it comes to whether it's 800 numbers or phone numbers to call, et cetera, and the description of if you have issues as a landlord, if you have issues as a tenant. I would like you to be prepared to let me know how balanced or not that rhetoric is, as far as inviting people to work with the housing department if they have a complaint. Some of the landlords legitimately, so I think, feel that in this city, it seems as though we cater more toward tenants than we do landlords. I do believe that many elected officials, for some reason, believe that a tenant is 9 times more likely to be a victim of a landlord than a landlord to be a victim of a tenant. I think that on both sides, they're all human beings. I think it's 50-50, in my opinion. So I would like you to be prepared to meet with me, and then so that we can go over not only the image but the activity, and also let me know what the ratios of complaints or what have you that you get are more tenant-oriented, landlord-oriented, and how we handle those, and what resources we put forth to make sure that we listen and learn from all people who come to the department with their issues.
Certainly, we'd be happy to, and just for the record, this proposal before you and what we'd like to discuss with you is an approach to provide a balance across the board for landlords and tenants, so that there's equal communication, so that everyone knows what their rights are.
Sure. And also, I don't blame you personally, because you're a staff person. Policy is dictated from the top down, whether it's the mayor's office, whether it's the council, with our motions and legislation, or also with other people around town who influence departments, in my opinion, unnecessarily. So thank you very much. So at this time, it will be a recommendation of the chair that we approve the CAO report. And so with that, that concludes item number 6.
Councilman, would you like the CEO to report on your requested report backs before this is heard in council?
No, the one that I just mentioned?
No, not the meeting with LHD, but the one previously.
The one about the lawsuits.
Yes.
Do you want
yes,
us?
Please.
How would you like us to do that? We could do it orally,
check with
or
the city attorney's office, check with...
I mean, but reporting back to you, what would...
When it comes to council.
When it comes to council?
Yeah,
Okay.
when it comes to
cool,
council.
Cool, cool.
Thank you.
No, we can do that.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that reminder. Okay, that concludes the items on today's agenda. Is there anybody here for general public comment? No public comment cards have been filled out for general public comment. General public comment is now closed. This committee is now adjourned.